you so much for the invitation to be here today. If you are not aware, I have flown in from Sydney, Australia, where on average for the last month it's been about 6 degrees. So it's actually really nice to be back in Vietnam where I can warm up a little bit. Today I'm going to talk to you about more of a global perspective and also give you some context of my background so you understand where I come from and why I have certain opinions about out-of-home media and elevated digital media. And I'm also going to share with you a research piece that I did with AdShell and Clear Channel, and also talk to you about some results on some global campaigns. I'm also available to chat to anybody after the event too, because I'm more than happy to talk about out-of-home media and elevated digital media. Okay, firstly, to give you some perspective of my background, and yes, this is me, I'm about 5 years old. I like to say that I'm thinking about media at this point in my career. I started in live entertainment, in communications, but very quickly progressed to more media and marketing. And I worked in radio, television, digital and e-commerce. And for the last part of my career, I've been dedicated to out-of-home media. I have worked in sales, marketing, integrated marketing particularly, sales strategy, and I have also led research data and insights teams. And that's a really important part of what I do because everything you do in marketing really has to be underpinned by research data and insights to inform a decision, but also have something to benchmark yourself against when you're doing marketing campaigns. I have, for the last part of my career, it's been about 6 years now, dedicated to working more full service in out-of-home media. And I have worked very closely with global brands on out-of-home media strategy, formulating what it is that we need to do as part of the media mix, and then also how we plan that out across different countries, cultures and currencies. And then also implementing the buying and execution of those campaigns, so the full service. I have also leaned in very heavily with our clients around effectiveness of these campaigns to prove the performance of the campaign in the mix as well. And out-of-home media particularly has really had some issues around the attribution of the performance of the media within the mix. Because in some instances it can be indirect, some direct, but when in the mix with other media, it can get very clouded and not very precise in the measurement. However, that is definitely evolving and changing. I also work very closely with the industry on advocacy and making sure that we're always proving whether something is effective or not effective, and then improving from there. The other part of what I've done is that I've worked from the agency side, working with brands. I've also worked on the brand side, working with agencies. And I have also worked on the media owner side. So I have seen from the inside, from a media owner's perspective, what they do on a daily basis to ensure their media is effective. I have also worked very closely with creative agencies and creative teams internally. Also worked very closely with technology. That's actually been something that has evolved quite rapidly in the last 10 years, especially with the digitisation of out-of-home media. And then also very closely with media owners in general to talk to them about what we see from the agency side and brand side and what media owners need to do to improve their media assets. So that's a bit of context for you, and you'll hear from me a little bit later why context is so important. But also it gives you an understanding of my perspective on the industry and why I'm going to talk to you about elevated digital media today. So firstly, my profession I always define as being a marketer at heart, but in the evolution of my career, I've moved further into more research data, insights and strategy that informs the marketing. And I know as a marketer, and I put this up deliberately, that every single day we have letters and numbers and KPIs that we have to achieve, and in every single category of business that can evolve and change. And when we're doing media mix modelling, we have to take these into consideration all the time. And that's why research is really important. And I think it was mentioned earlier about research being really important in sharing. So if you have any research, to share that so that we can always learn. But these things are things that I think about all the time, and also trying to work out how we can shape research to uncover better research, better data, and also how we can extrapolate the insight. So the investment considerations that myself and the team work on a daily basis are not a surprise. Audience is obviously a very important part of investment consideration. Who do we need to talk to? What messages do we need to impart to them? Do we have the right audience subsets? Are we finding them in the right location? Do we know where these people live, work, play? Do we know why they're there? Do we know if that changes in particular days, time of day? So location's a very important investment consideration as well. Then behaviours, because we know that audiences and audience subsets, the behaviours and attitudes can change. And then also the environment in which we're communicating. That's actually a really big consideration, because the environment can actually change the neurological response from a consumer. And then also the mindset of the consumer within the environment. So these are investment considerations that we think of on a daily basis. But I want to talk today about environment and mindset, because elevated digital media is a really nuanced environment. And as a marketer, if you understand that and harness that, you can actually achieve incredible results, because the psychological impact of being inside a private, confined environment can actually have really positive responses to those that are experiencing that environment and then seeing marketing messages. So I want to share with you a research piece that we conducted as part of AdShell, which was part owned by Clear Channel, which is a very big out-of-home media operator, as is AdShell. And we actually did this study in Australia. We did neuro research. We did a quantitative study with 5,000 people. We did the neurological impact study as well, measuring the cognitive responses and neurological responses to different environments, different messages, and then we split that by 10 different categories of client. We did quantitative study, and we also did a qualitative study. So we didn't just take the data, but we actually talked to them in depth. We wanted to know if a piece of research that we had conducted or a piece of data that we found, we wanted to talk to them more about that. So we actually did in-depth face-to-face qualitative interviews to extract more understanding of what that data meant. And this is where it gets really interesting. So we actually studied all the different out-of-home media environments. We looked at roadside, we looked at retail, we looked at airport, we looked at elevated digital media, we looked at escalator media, we looked at static media, we looked at digital media, we looked at the combination of both together. And that mindset environment actually became a really poignant point in the data that we found, because there was a huge difference between an immersive environment with no distraction versus an external environment with a lot of distraction. The cognitive response was a lot stronger when it was immersed and in a private environment. No surprise. It also contributed very significantly to priming time. And as a marketer, you should understand that priming is just important as point of sale, or especially on the path to purchase. When repetitive messages are communicated to the right people at the right time, with the right context, the recall and the action and behaviour after that can be a lot more concentrated and a lot more positive, and can also convert higher. So the priming time was really important as well, and elevated digital media, the immersive in private environment, performed incredibly high. It also was the first and last touch point of the day. So when they get in the elevator to go to work, or to go out to shop, or to go out to see friends, it was really the first media that they saw. And then on their way home, they were getting back into the elevator, and it was really the last touch point before they got back into the house close to a computer where they could potentially action an activity, whether that was to go online and search for more information, or to buy online, or to take action about what to do the next day. The recall was also incredibly high. So you would have seen from some of the other stats that came up today, recall is very high, and cognitively, the attribution is that because of the private environment and because there is a dedicated piece of communication with no distraction, and you have a dwell time, in some instances up to 45 seconds, sometimes longer if the elevator is delayed or is a taller building. All of that combined has incredible conversion power, recall power, and great branding power. It can also influence purchase. So the contribution to the path to purchase is really high. And all of this research was showing this, which was fantastic as a media owner to hear that. The performance of the campaigns that we were running in this environment were also really, really strong. When it was combined with other media as well, performance elevated once again. We had generally a 19% uplift when adding this to the media plan, which, if anybody wants a 19% uplift in their effectiveness, great. If you don't, I'd be very concerned. But, as was mentioned before, the single point of difference between 19% and 33% uplift was the contextual relevance, and that links really closely to creative. And you would have seen from the stats that the performance, about 50% of it is attributed to creative. If you are using the right environment at the right time in your media mix, and then you're also layering on contextually relevant creative, you're going to have another uplift, and we all want another uplift. So the marketers are really understanding this. If you can create contextually relevant, compelling creative, you are going to get an uplift because you're going to captivate and engage the audience. And that's a big contributor to conversion. The other research pieces that we've done over the years also really align closely with what you're seeing from Nielsen IQ and Kantar. Brand safety is elevated. And when we did the qualitative research piece, we asked the question, why do you think that it's brand safe on that screen? For a consumer, why do you trust that media more than others? Because the out-of-home media screens were trusted more than any other media in the survey. And what they said was, when I see the advertising on the screen, I know that it's gone through an approval process. I know that it's been checked by the right people, and then if I see the advertising, it must have been approved to screen. Something they hadn't really considered as a media owner, but something that from a consumer perspective definitely adds to the overall performance, because a trusted media, the halo effect on the advertising is also trusted. Also, we had results of up to 16 times more effective in some research pieces around different categories. We also found that the attention was 100%. There was no other media to compete with it. The awkwardness that you can experience in an elevator was dissipated by the fact that you could look at something else other than your screen on your phone, or looking at strangers awkwardly. And also the noticeability was incredibly high. And in some instances, that's really important because, as you know, in your media mixes, some media is not necessarily as noticeable. and you want to maximise the amount of people that are noticing your advertising. The multiplier effect was also really strong. I have seen today up to 6 times a day being used. Globally, it's 4.82, so Vietnam is higher than the global standard. We also have 45 to 120 seconds dwell time, and there's always a 1+ reach. All of that contributes to effectiveness. So it's a very unique environment, very private, very protected, no distraction, strong dwell time, and therefore its traits contribute to the overall performance. So I just want to share with you very quickly some global campaigns, because it's great to talk about all this in data form, but if you don't have demonstrable proof from other brands and categories, it's not as strong. So firstly, an FMCG client, they're using dynamic creative optimization, time of day, changing their creative for the location, changing their creative time of day, changing for the weather, and they have about 100 different executions of their creative being served depending on that. We also have restaurant client. They're looking very closely at implementing proximity, which they did with this particular campaign. They also do time of day messages, so breakfast, lunch and dinner. They also did contextually relevant creative. 5 o'clock, are you hungry? Are you thinking about dinner? Come down, we're just 30 metres away. Then this particular one is from Australia, and it's a jewellery client. Not only do they have a great result in terms of people searching for their product, but they actually increased purchases by 81% during the campaign. And then they also had a long tail effect of increase in purchases weeks after the campaign had finished. And all of these use the elevated digital media. This one from Italy, it's a gambling betting client, and they use live data feeds to serve the stats and also the betting scores for betting prior to the match, and then also doing live data updates on match days. So they had live odds being displayed to encourage people to actually bet before the game, but then also making sure they got the information from the creative after the match started. And then this one is a software client, Germany campaign, and they had some great results. They exceeded their KPIs. They had a 45% brand recall on their brand new brand. They also had a 54% engagement. They had massive increases in their online engagement as well. And the clarity of message when we did the research was incredibly high, much higher than what they were expecting. So for them, it was a really good result, and certainly much higher than they were expecting, and they hadn't used the media before. So, in summary, there's a positive psychological impact of the private environment and elevated digital media, and the reach of it is also really important. As we know, reach and frequency is the foundation of every media plan. There's a lot of screens and a lot of locations, reaching a lot of people. And if you layer that with the contextually relevant messaging, really strong creative, you're going to uplift the performance as well. And all the data proves it. And that's what we're after. And that's advertising performance. And that's what this does. Thank you so much for listening to me today. I appreciate it. I have a great passion for it. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to come up and ask me. Thank you.